So for Paul Ryan, that means going forward, will he remain Speaker? If so, what kind of relationship will he have with the president, whether it's Hillary Clinton or perhaps more interestingly, if it's President Donald Trump? It's a new season. They're excited. Football's back, and as you can see with this line of metal detectors behind me, there's also a new procedure for getting into Lambeau. But officers noticed something was moving inside the box, so they took it to the hospital, got it x-rayed. The Bernie Sanders campaign turned a lot of heads nationally over the summer when he drew a crowd of about 10,000 for a rally in Madison. This vacant foreclosed house near 68th and Silver Spring is listed under Nation Star. The company is servicing about 3,500 houses throughout Milwaukee. The results indicate that Donald Trump just owned the northern part of our state in a way Mitt Romney did not 4 years ago. But what really stands out here is how Hillary Clinton and the Dems failed to rally voters in Milwaukee County.
Hank? I made you Bayatpour at Miller Park, where a conspiracy is afoot. There are those who wonder if our beloved ballpark pup died and the Brewers secretly replaced him without telling anyone.
Well, Brad, some of the people we talked to around here say they feel the same way they did back in August. They want to see the body cam video themselves. We can talk more after that. Today, the family tells us Seville Smith was a father. Meanwhile, Smith's father says he feels somewhat responsible for what happened to his son. As the sun rises on Sherman Park Sunday, volunteers clean up the debris from Saturday's riot. Among them, Rochelle Moore, who says she recalls a Martin Luther King march from her childhood amid unrest in Chicago.
It is sad to see that this is still going on.
As neighbors discuss the previous night, Patrick Smith arrives at the scene. His son, 23-year-old Seville Smith, is the suspect shot dead Saturday, sparking the violent outbursts.
You playing a part in their fault. If you know they're the reason, don't give in to their hand. Don't be running around going get guns. Don't let up and shoot each other and wait on them to shoot y'all, because that's all they doing.
Smith says he takes some of the responsibility for his son's death.
And they looking at their dad like he's doing all these things. I just got out of jail probably 2 months ago, but I've been going back and forth in jail, and they see these things. So I'm like to apologize to my kids, because this is the role model they look up to.
Smith, along with city officials, call for cooler heads on Sunday.
Stay away from this area. Let's calm things down. We are going to have an opportunity through the investigation to find out what happened.
Right now, the city is not identifying the officer who shot Smith, saying threats have been made against him. Police say the officer has 3 years of experience, all with MPD. Chief Flynn confirms the officer is African-American himself. Back at Sherman Park, Moore says it feels like the late 60s all over again, with one clear need.
It's sad to see it again, you know. But I understand the anger and the oppression. It's just handling it. We just need leaders to show us how to handle that. Smith's family tells us he leaves behind a son and a daughter. Court records show last year Smith was charged with recklessly endangering safety and witness intimidation. Both of those felony charges were eventually dropped by prosecutors. 2 years ago, Smith pleaded guilty to the misdemeanor charge of illegally carrying a concealed weapon. Reporting live outside police headquarters downtown, AJ Bayatpour, Fox 6 News. There's a heavy police presence there, and I have to imagine the police are telling them to move. And I just heard about 10 shots or so behind me. I heard about 10 shots to the east of where we stand in the direction of like 40th or 41st, and we just heard another blast. Several more. There are a lot of shots being fired here. A lot of shots being fired here, guys, after the several rounds of gunfire that we've heard here. I can imagine that would be enough to prompt law enforcement to say enough's enough and move people back. At the same time, it's a delicate balance, because if the police come in hot and heavy, you certainly run the risk of agitating the majority of what has been, for the most part, a nonviolent gathering. There are obviously some people causing some trouble with the reports of gunshots, and then to a lesser extent, the bottles being thrown, the yelling and carrying on in that way. But for the most part, people have been spectating, and I imagine law enforcement is kind of trying to strike that right balance of putting an end to any kind of threat that may be, without running the risk of frustrating people, because I could certainly envision a scenario where if the police were to come in too strong, those who are merely spectators would some of whom may become aggressors, just angry with an aggressive message of it's time to go. The camera is facing to the west, so as many of you folks at home know, Sherman runs north-south, Burleigh running east-west. Those are two main streets in our city. We are along Burleigh. The camera is facing west on Burleigh. They're getting their kicks out of, yelling at the police while broadcasting on their Facebook Lives, kind of a symbol of, what things look like in 2016. But that is the extent of the resistance where we are right now. Again, there's no strong physical resistance. When law enforcement gets serious about moving people back, they move, and for the first time within the last 10 minutes or so, we've seen a little bit of a dispersal from this northeast side of Sherman Park, as some people have, it looks like, started to make their way somewhere else. Not sure where they're going. They disappear off into the darkness as they head up 42nd, or if they head further east down Burleigh, some of whom have certainly gotten into their cars and left, because Burleigh is nowhere near as parked up as it was when we first got here. In a room full of first responders,
I wanted to see
Christine Gaspardo fits right in, not only because she was an EMT for 15 years.
She was lying on the sidewalk right here.
Back in February, Gaspardo was working the desk at Hart Auto when a frantic customer ran in.
All I could get from him was that somebody outside needed help.
On the sidewalk, an unconscious woman. Gaspardo knew she had overdosed.
She was very thin, and they have that sunken in look in their face.
Christine did CPR until the rescue crew got there with Narcan. The woman was saved.
I'm just like a proud father.
It's not the first time one of Larry Rowell's employees helped save someone. In January of 2015, a fire raged in a house just a few doors down.
Just like any shop.
Luke Chuma ran into the house along with Larry when they heard a kid was trapped inside.
Something told me the kid was going to be in the last room on the left-hand side, and I crawled all the way through the hallway, opened the door, seen the kid there.
And he was yelling, "The kid's in here, the kid's in here."
The fire shot in my face, so I had to get out of there.
Luke was able to give firefighters the boy's location. The 5-year-old survived.
We were just the right people at the right time,
Once again, a Hart Auto employee is honored at the Milwaukee Fire Department's award ceremony. Shaking hands with the mayor and fire chief, Gaspardo is grateful but reluctant to call herself a hero.
It's in my blood. You just react, you just do.
And Gaspardo was surprised tonight. Her father flew in from Florida today to sit by her side during tonight's ceremony. She says all she wants now is the opportunity to meet the woman she helped save back in February. Cheaper to keep them. Well, that was plastered right there on the microphone at the podium, and that's the argument that we heard from officials at the state and local level, that in the long term, especially for the state, it would cost less to invest in a new arena than it would be if the Bucks were to leave Wisconsin. Tonight inside the War Memorial, two consistently made arguments emerged. One saying we should not give public benefits to a private basketball team with very wealthy owners. The other argument, we cannot pass up on a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reinvent downtown Milwaukee. As for how a new arena would benefit the state, supporters say Wisconsin currently collects more than $6 million a year in player income taxes, a number they say will grow with the NBA's new, richer television rights contract. In a new arena, it'll cost an extra $2 to see the Bucks. Nation Star Mortgage is owned by an investment group called Fortress. The chairman of its board, Wes Edens, co-owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. For months, critics have said it's ridiculous that Edens wants public money for a new arena while Nation Star oversees foreclosed homes in the city. When you find out how much more work the Bucks have to do just to get building permits to start construction, it becomes easier to understand why they're pushing this back a year. Co-owner Wes Edens says team president Peter Feigin could have used a better choice of words, but he adds the issues raised by Feigin are real in Milwaukee, and he thinks the Bucks might be able to help. The Bucks run familiar drills Tuesday as training camp opens in Madison. Co-owner Wes Edens finds himself in the unfamiliar position of responding to less than flattering remarks made by the team president about Milwaukee.
The words he chose might have been a little different.
Peter Feigin delivered those words last week before the Rotary Club of Madison. This quote, first reported by the Wisconsin State Journal, reads, quote, "Very bluntly, Milwaukee is the most segregated, racist place I've experienced in my life. It is just a place that is antiquated. It is in desperate need of repair and has happened for a long, long time."
The numbers don't lie, man. And if he feels that way, he feels feels that way.
Bucks forward John Henson refers to 2 national studies and a UWM report that found Milwaukee to be the most segregated major metro in the country. But if the city is indeed in need of major changes, how does it help to spend hundreds of millions of public dollars on a new arena for a team with very wealthy owners?
After interest, $400 million taxpayer dollars for the public's share of the arena. That money could cover a lot of those repairs. What do you say to those people in Milwaukee watching it?
Well, you know, again, the choice of words would have been different, but I think that the notion of awareness is a good one. I know from my part, I'm very focused on doing the things we can to connect and make a difference to the community.
The Bucks have pledged to put their money where their mouth is. They vow to pay workers at the new arena at least $15 an hour by 2023. Henson had his own high-profile incident last fall. He believes he was racially profiled by a suburban jewelry store that locked the doors and called the police before he could come in. He says the team, including players, has a responsibility to help bridge the racial divide.
Not just saying stuff, going to help and try to go into the community and figure out what the issue is, and starting from the young, from the youth, and hopefully by the time they're our age, you know, it's not a problem.
We did ask if we could speak with the president, Peter Feigin himself. Bucks officials told us he was not in Madison today. Reporting live from inside the Kohl Center, AJ Bayatpour, Fox 6 News.